Welcome back to the weekly news roundup. This is the privacy and the security/data breach news of the week. So these are recorded live Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you would like to catch the show live. But for now, we'll just go ahead and get jumping right on in. First up is there is an update on the Google location data from Down Under. Thanks, Vince, for giving me this article. So, Google deceived some Australian mobile users about the collection of location data, court finds. This first hit, I think, about 2 years ago. The allegation is the settings inside of your Android device were so complicated that you actually had to turn off both the location settings and you had to toggle it off in your account. If you left any of those on, Google would still log any data. Since most people just see the location data inside of the Android settings and don't ever go to the website to see where the location data is on the website, it was still collecting and harvesting and storing data, and this made some people very mad enough to wrestle some crocodiles. And so it turned up a lawsuit down under, and this actually came down, and the courts said that yes, Google was indeed deceiving people. They had a system that was too difficult, and if you turned off one location setting, it should have automatically turned off the other. And they ended up getting hit with a pretty big fine in that. So there we have a victory in Australia, at least. Another update, nobody is joining the FLoC. Brave jumps out, Vivaldi jumps out, Edge jumps out, even Mozilla jumps out. Like, Mozilla finally makes a good decision. And like, what is this, the first time in 5 years? Anyone keeping track of these Mozilla decisions? But even Mozilla's like, no, bro, we'll take your money. We'll pander to nonsense political crap, but we're not joining your FLoC, you know. So there we have it. So a couple more browsers that are not adding into the FLoC. So who knows? Maybe Google will get the idea and be like, let's just kill this stupid FLoC. Put the chicken out the pasture. That's kind of interesting. All right. So now we jump into the rest of it is like for a while here, facial recognition stuff. Lots of weird stuff going on. I think I have 3 articles in facial recognition. We're moving to the privacy really too quickly here. That's okay. There's a lot of security. So EU lawmakers propose strict curbs on the use of facial recognition. So over in EU, they want any use of facial recognition to be essential to public interest scenarios. That basically means the police. So, you know, it's public safety. We got to monitor it. So, you know, there we have it. So I'm not sure if this is good, bad, indifferent, or whatever else it might happen to be. But EU, nevertheless, they are trying to put curbs on it, which this is interesting because EU is almost taking the opposite approach of the United States, which is interesting. So EU is putting a strong curb on facial recognition in public spaces, limiting the technology to a small number of public interest scenarios. This is a new legislation coming down. It is a 138-page document. They say facial recognition systems infringe on individual civil rights, therefore should only be used in scenarios which they are deemed essential, for instance, the search for missing children or the policing of bad boy events. The draft legislation added that real-time facial recognition, which uses live tracking rather than past footage or photographs in public spaces by authorities, should only ever be used for limited periods of time and should be subject to prior consent by a judge or national authority. So that's what they're having to say there. And, you know, I forgot to look how this dealt with private industries, because that really is an important thing. There's one thing to deal with the public and the government sector. There's another to deal with the private industries. And I did not get a chance to look into this thoroughly enough to see where the EU went. But over here in the United States, there's a bipartisan Senate bill. That just means that a monkey on either end of the aisle has agreed to it. And they decided to, I think there's a pithy title to this one too. It's the Senate bill would block law enforcement agencies from purchasing Clearview AI data and other data from brokers. The goal of this legislation, and at least on the surface, it looks really good. Maybe there's something bad in here, but on the surface, what this is going to do is it's going to prevent any government agency from purchasing any private data from any form of firm. In other words, No more ICE buying data from license plates. So, the tow trucks, which have the side gig of putting license plate readers on their vehicles, and as they're driving around creating a database of where all these license plates are, selling these to ICE, no longer can happen. The idea of buying data from a DMV for police investigation even would be off the table. Any form of purchasing, any form of data on any form of private individual would be banned by this proposal. And so they're calling it, I don't know where they come with these. I'm trying to see does this actually mean something? FANFSA? I don't know, FANSA. The Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act. I want to say you just can't buy crap on citizens. The idea is to close down a loophole where the government's like, well, we're not collecting any data or just buying it, and that's really what this is. So Ron Wyden and Rand Paul are together on this. They say current privacy laws don't apply evenly because there's companies that can scoop up anything. This is really that third-party doctrine Snowden talks about. Sure, the government's not collecting any data on you. It's just Google and Facebook, and they just go to them and say, hey, give me all the data on this particular guy. And so that's really what this is. So this is actually, at least on the surface, it looks to be really good. I'll let the legal analysts dive on in, read everything verbatim, and let me know. And but overall, this guy here it's set to say the government cannot purchase data on individual people. But that has no restrictions on private businesses. Walt Disney World is now testing facial recognition at the Magic Kingdom entrances. Now, this is a 30-day test, and what they're doing is when you go to Walt Disney World, then you can choose either the facial recognition line or the I don't want to participate in facial recognition line. The problem I see with this is all these facial recognition cameras are all over. Now, the way their technology is going to work is you go into the system, and then what happens is it assigns a number to your face, and then anytime your face shows up, it will show as the number, and they'll be able to track you around the park. That's really what the goal would be. Obviously, the positives of something like this, you facial ID your child. You're like, my child's missing. Here's the picture of the kid, and they can tell you exactly where the kid is. That's kind of good news, especially since, to my understanding, the city where Walt Disney World is at is actually the number one city where children particularly, are stolen and sold into slavery. So you do kind of want to keep an eye on your children if you go to Walt Disney World. That being said, obviously the downside is this is always working. It's always everywhere. Don't believe that if you walk into Walt Disney World and say, oh, I don't want to participate in your facial ID, oh, they're still grabbing some data. Now, what they're saying is that they are explicitly saying they are not sharing the data with any third parties at all. I kind of find that hard to believe because are they developing all this technology, or is it some third party who actually will have access? Number two, they're saying all data will be deleted at the end of the 30-day test. And so we'll see what happens from this. But nevertheless, it is becoming a dystopian nightmare just to go and tie everything down to individual cards and basically become a slave. I'm just glad I got the Disney World thing out of the way. I can say I've been there once in my life. I'm not going back because it's kind of like walking into mainland China at this point, Hey, let's pay exorbitant amounts of fee to go and be tracked down and be given a social credit score. But that really is what Walt Disney is doing with their facial ID system. And on to our final article today. The U.S. Postal Service, this just broke early this week. I think was it Wednesday maybe. And the Postal Service has been running a covert operations program. So this finally explains what has been going on with the post office. Like, this is the only government agency that collects massive amounts of money from every individual person outside of taxes. And it's still one of the only government organizations that's bankrupt. Maybe the problem is they've been filtering all their money into spying on everybody. So let's completely defund the USPS for now until we have total authorization that this has been completely gone, deleted, and eradicated. But what they've been doing is apparently there is a police arm of the Postal Service. And the police arm of the Postal Service has been monitoring everybody's social media going back quite a while. And of course, the article, at least starting, talk about, it grabbed up stuff from Parler. At least the article also said, oh yeah, there's a whole ton from Facebook on there as well. And by the way, there's a whole lot more early January gathering information on Facebook than there was on Parler, but nobody seems to be wanting to close the Zuck down. So very interesting. I think we have a monopoly here. But they tip some hat to it, but they bring that up. Nevertheless, what they've been doing is they've been monitoring all the social media posts. So if you have social media posts, the post office has been looking for it, collecting it, storing it all up, and then passing that on to other agencies. This is obviously costing a lot of money. So what in the world is going on here? Maybe this is why the post office is going bankrupt and all that. Maybe we should just be like, all right, let's stop. But anyway, they are spying. So reminders. Now, here's a couple notes. Number one, it is not just mainstream social media. You guys are like, well, I'm over on Gab. Oh, no. They're monitoring Gab. They're monitoring Minds. They're monitoring Facebook. They're monitoring Twitter. They're monitoring, if it's a social network platform, it is probably being monitored by the post office. So if you do have to use this social media crap, make sure everything is privatized only to your groups, but even that doesn't guarantee it. It's just best that you not use these things for personal purposes. So this way, the post office is not going to be able to collect and gather and store data and information. I would just encourage you, just jump off of social media. Life was a whole lot better before social media actually existed. There's kind of my thoughts, my take on this crazy dystopian. Well, if you are into science fiction, I do actually have a science fiction novel called Synaptergy. And this guy here, it is kind of roughly based on some technologies that I'm starting to see are starting to emerge into our society. Maybe I'm a prophet. My other science fiction novel, everything that I wrote in there is actually coming true, at least somewhere in this world. But this one here, you can head on over to synaptergy.com or tlm.li/s. And you can have a look at what I'm doing. You can read the entirety of chapter 1 down here. You also can listen to, if you allow SoundCloud to load up, you can actually listen to the first 5 minutes of the book. And the where to buy button is going to give you information about all the places I know of where the book is available. But check your favorite online bookstore in print, ebook, and audiobook editions, and you can probably find the links for those. So that is synaptergy.com. Go ahead and have a look at that. And if you've picked up a copy of that, go ahead and leave me a review on Amazon. That's actually always helpful to authors that are not part of the major globalist move. So have a look at that if you like science fiction. Let's go ahead and move on to security next. So first up, we have a breach at Codecov. So Codecov, I had not heard of them before, but it is a software auditing company. Basically, Codecov is used to look for vulnerabilities in other code, and they had a major software breach which went undetected for months. And this one was pretty big. I read too many security articles this week. Hopefully I don't get all these mixed up. If I remember correctly, this is the one that allowed pretty much anything you were doing on any other platform, because it's used for pen testing. It allowed you to seek in there, get the credentials for like everything that you were testing. So it's like, this is a pretty major leak. But the software was in there for quite a while. Let's see, it's used to test software code for vulnerabilities. 29,000 clients include Atlassian, Procter & Gamble, GoDaddy, GoDaddy, far away, please, and the Washington Post, probably a bunch of other ones as well. So yeah, they might have all had data breaches. Watch out, guys. Your data from GoDaddy might be breached. Who knows? So CEO acknowledged the breach and federal investigation. Someone saying that gained access to the bash uploader script and modified it without the company's permission. Our investigation has been determined to begin January 31st, 2021. There were periodic unauthorized alterations of our bash uploader script by a third party, which enabled them to potentially export information stored in our users' continuous integration environments. Oh, joy. So that's the type of stuff that we have to watch out for, because that stuff gets into everything. If you are looking for a reason to run either Brave or a ad blocker, or run a custom host scripts to block ad blocking, there is a few different ad companies out there that keep on getting inundated with malware. In fact, even Google is going to have some malware in it, so you got to be careful with that. So millions of web servers are being targeted by a single malvertising group. So it is infecting ad servers that go straight to the jugular, the firm says. Yeah, let's leave aside the sensationalism. What's going on is there are several ad networks that not just Google and Facebook. There are several other ad networks you can be part of if you don't want to be part of Google. And then these ones don't do very good auditing, although even Facebook and Google don't necessarily do the best of auditing either. But they don't do as much auditing and don't have the AI tools to monitor it as much. And so malware users get into these guys. These ad groups will promise to pay out just as good or better than Google. And so people use them without thinking. And before you know it, your good legitimate website is serving malware in the form of ads from these third-party adware companies that are basically serving malicious JavaScript code. So this is just one more of them. So this one's actually an open source app for organizations to run their own ad servers. So it has infected 120 servers. So I guess if you are running one of those servers, make sure it is up to date. I'll have to look into this though. That looks interesting. 120 figure was twice the number infected by infected Revive servers Confiant last year. So this is a regular thing. So here we have down here, we have, I can't read all of these things here. This is the website. Here's the victim. The hacked Revive instance now has a client-side fingerprint where they're doing the server-side cloaking and then giving the malicious payload. And so this is why you got to be careful about what's running on the website. Blocking JavaScript would be yet another good thing you could do. It's going to prevent a lot of these types of things from happening. Well, if you have called the lizard to see if you can pay 15% more, that's what always happened when I called Geico. I have like a very clean driving history. Every single time I called Geico, I was like, let's see if they're good. A, you get absolutely annoyed to hell by their stupid over-aggressive marketing. And then B, the rates that they quote you are like 15% more, not 15% less. So I don't know what type of morons these guys are. But apparently it's pretty bad because now fraudsters stole customers' driver's license numbers for months. So second largest auto insurer in the U.S. has fixed a security bug that let fraudsters steal customers' driver's license number from the website. The data breach notice filed with the California Attorney General's office. Geico said information gathered from other sources was used to obtain unauthorized access to your driver's license number through the online sales system on our website. The insurance giant did not say how many customers were affected by the breach, but said the fraudsters accessed customer driver's license numbers between January 21st and March 1st. Companies are required to alert the state's attorneys general office when more than 500 state residents are affected by a security incident. So they said they have reason to believe the information could be used to fraudulently apply for unemployment benefits in your name. And that's actually what happened. So this state deals with, I believe, the CARES Act. They've basically found these driver's licenses used to steal government assistance, really. Isn't that glorious? Take advantage of that. Like, I didn't say 15%, but I got free government agency in someone else's name. Woohoo! And when out there using Geico, let me know. Brace yourselves. Facebook has had yet another mega leak on its hands. This time, Facebook email search version 1.0 can process 5 million email addresses per day. So this is a system that is going to allow you to search up an email address and then grab all data and information associated with the individual Facebook account. So, and they were able to automate this guy, and yeah, it pretty much, if I remember correctly, this one was actually reported to Facebook. I believe they were reported to Facebook, and Facebook ignored it and just said, never mind. So there we have that. And this kind of leads to a giant vulnerability. Who knows? Maybe it will be fixed. Maybe it will not be fixed. And hackers are now exploiting Pulse Secure zero-day breach. So this exploit allowed state-based actors to bypass two-factor authentication and breach defense contractors. Oh, joy. We have ourselves some defense contractor breaches now. So these are the types of things that we are dealing with. So Pulse Secure VPN was a way to secure defense contractors getting into, some higher level things. Yeah, these guys got in as well. So 12 malware families associated with the exploitation of Pulse Secure VPN devices. They said families are related to the circumvention of authentication and backdoor access to these devices, but they are not necessarily related to each other and have been observed in separate investigations. It's likely multiple actors are responsible for the creation and deployment of these various code families. So, yeah, just expect somebody to, accidentally trigger some nuclear holocaust or something. It'll be Christmas at Ground Zero. The music's in the air and the sleigh bells are ringing and the carolers are singing. And never mind. And finally, we have Apple. This is an interesting one. It was not actually Apple that it's not actually Apple that was hit with the ransomware specifically. What it was is it was the contractor Quanta Computer who actually assembles the Mac. Not only do they assemble Mac, they also assemble Dell and I think some HP. Basically, they're the largest manufacturer of the actual on-the-ground manufacturer of these. They had a data breach, and what was the first thing that leaked out? MacBook schematics. Louis Rossmann will be happy, I promise. So there we had some stuff leaked out, and the guys actually went for Quanta Computer, and they said, no, we're not paying the ransom. So the ransom is actually, they jumped out. This is a new thing. They jumped out to Apple. So now they're saying, hey, Apple, you got deep pockets. Pay us the money or we're going to leak more stuff that we got. And so it'll be interesting to see what actually happens out of this. So Apple is being targeted with malware, but it wasn't Apple itself that was compromised. It was the system, the company that puts together the computers on behalf of Apple that actually did. So with that, you can help support the channel over on Patreon, patreon.com/TOMM. And this actually supports all of my channels. Although I might be closing the Writing Done Right channel, I just don't know exactly for sure yet. The Christian stuff and then the Linux stuff as well. You can jump on over there if you'd like to help support the channel. So with that, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.